You're listening to Insane in the Membrane with me, Rich Wilson, and my I was about to do the radio show then.
Interesting new stuff.
Yeah, I was about to do the radio because we do a radio show as well, Lachlan, and I always go my second in command, producer Paul, and I'm in. Right, I'm gonna.
And
it's Insane in the Membrane. I'm Rich Wilson, your wonderful host, and my wonderful guest is Lachlan Werner. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah,
the brilliant. Bad. I was watching you. I've been watching your stuff. Excellent work.
Oh no,
excellent work. Oh yeah. But it's funny because somebody else had mentioned you a little while ago, and I'm like, oh yeah, because we were talking about people that do something a bit different to just straight stand up. And your was it Frankie Munro came up? You came up. A few others, and I was like, oh, I must check that out. And then when this came up, and I'm like, oh yeah, well, let me have a look. And honestly, brilliant. You're absolutely brilliant.
Thank you. I mean, that's a very nice party to be in with Frankie Munro as well. He's absolutely brilliant.
I think it's just like because I've been a comedian for 20 years, and I love it. But you get a bit. Yeah, I get fed up with my own act. So it's always nice to see. Someone's doing something else, and was it you call yourself the Puff Prince of Puppets?
yeah, that's the line. That's the line. It gets me in trouble. It somehow gets me in trouble because then people don't want to say it, and I'm like, well, everyone knows I wrote it. It's fine. Like you can say it.
Well, that was it. On my way here, I'm like, it made me laugh. And then I'm like, do I say that? And you do have to question it because obviously, I went through that whole process because I'm like, well, are your pronouns he? What are your pronouns, may I ask?
Yeah, I'm a he. Yeah. I take a he.
I just want to make sure I don't upset anybody. Don't get me wrong. I'm not some fuddy-duddy old dude that it's just sometimes I forget to ask. So, but you're. So because I'm not, he said it, so it's fine. I'm sure.
Fine.
And even then, when I went to say it, I was a bit like,
I know, and it is funny because that word, like, it's not. It's maybe it's a bit. It's also possibly a bit like generational because to me, I find that word just so funny, and I've never been actually called that word. Like, that's not something that's like, it's sort of not quite of this. There's definitely slurs that I would be like still, that I'd be like, you can't really reclaim that or make that funny or play around with that. But I think that I feel like Puff is like, it's so dated and stupid that I find it like just really fun to.
I think that must be, you're right about it being a generational thing. I mean, it must be so far back into the dark ages that people were calling each other that. Like, how old are you, may I ask?
Oh, I'm 25.
How old? 25, yeah, there you go. So, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. That's when I was a kid, and people would say that on a regular basis, like it was everywhere. And I remember, a load of us got told off in school, in junior school, because I think we just heard the word, so we were calling each other it, and we were calling someone else it. Lesbian as well. We got called. We were calling people lesbians. We didn't know what it was. But I remember getting told off for saying it, and and that's way back. And as you say now, you go, well, it just sounds stupid. It's such a silly little word.
Yeah,
but I get it. Yeah. So to you, it must be like that was in the medieval times.
Well, it's just playful. I think it's like also like, I don't know, even gay, I feel like is such a sort of like, it's so funny that these words all sound quite like, they sound camp. Like the words themselves are so like frivolous and camp. And it's like, actually, if you're going to be a comedian and you've got to play with that like aspect of yourself anyway, you might as well like embrace how sort of stupid these things already sound.
Yeah. There's a few. I mean, people, they do, they'll jokingly call someone gay if they're doing something that's vaguely not, I don't know. Like just that's like if you go, I'm gonna have an early night. Oh, that's a bit gay, mate. You go, what?
Yeah. Anything that's like, anything a bit lame or flamboyant or like, or like all in that wheelhouse. which is all
Yeah,
sort
yeah,
of
yeah.
exactly it. I'm not doing anything to in any way combat those stereotypes. I feel like I'm just like, that's exactly what I do. Yeah, lame and flamboyant is my kind of my brand.
It does make me laugh, though. That does. I mean, obviously, as you said, you know, there are certain words, and you go, no, I'm not having that. But yeah, I think, yeah, yeah, mate. I'm gonna have, yeah. No, what was it? What did I do the other day? I had a cake, and it wasn't like it wasn't like chocolate cake. It was something quite fancy, and I'm like, all right,
yeah,
mate.
yeah.
It's a bit gay, mate. I'm like, mate, it's a nice cake. What's wrong with you? So yeah, I understand that. So you're probably gonna get asked this, or you do get asked this all the time when you're doing these things. Like, what's your background? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Worcester in the West Midlands.
Okay.
And which probably I think has a lot to do with my like sense of humor and kind of the stuff that I do, because I think it is like, it's sort of quite a God, my instinct is to call it a boring place, and then I feel bad about saying that straight away. But it's like, it's a place that for sure, like, culturally doesn't have a whole lot happening.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So, and I think that kind of, in a weird way, I feel like maybe that like boredom of it, or something about that, kind of like fueled me quite a bit. I feel like to live in a more imaginary place from a young age, and to sort of play with like, wanting to escape with the stuff I was making or things like that from quite young.
I know exactly what you mean. When I say this all the time on here. When I grew up in a town called Orpington, which is just on the edge of sort of London, southeast London, and it's in between sort of London and Kent. And you know, again, you know, there's not much there, not much going on. I feel bad saying that, but it's just a town where people would live to go to work.
Yeah,
like they'd all commute into London. It's a commuter town, and so there was always aspirations of getting into London, going and doing something else. You know, exploring things that are a little bit more colourful, for want of a better expression. So, you know, same thing.
Yeah, and it's not a bad place. Like, it's interesting because it's sort of, whenever I go back, there's a real sense of like, something very nice about like feeling that people are real there. There's more of a, you know, as opposed to somewhere like London, it's quite nice to go back and be like, oh, there is definitely like there are good people who are good, real people there. There's just also then, I guess, with that, a lot of like, unfortunately, still, you know, dated opinions and all of the stuff that comes with small town vibes, and it's.
Did you find that was still a thing? Because, like I said, again, generational. You think progress is being made, and I know things are very different from when I was growing up. But did you find, is there still an issue with these things? With, you know,
I think a bit,
like
I think in more like, definitely outside of London, I think so. Yeah, I do think so. I think that it's like, you have to, I mean, and sometimes as a comedian, it's interesting because you sort of find yourself having to work a bit harder in other places where, you know, in London, you can just maybe get a laugh straight away for playing with or subverting like an aspect of your identity. Whereas in other places, you have to sort of feel like first you're making people trust you. There's a little bit more of a thing of being like, oh, okay, you're not sure about me making fun of myself for being queer, or like, or for the way I look, or for, you know, like, you're not quite ready to laugh at that because we're not like, it's not even necessarily like something that you feel okay about. I don't know. There's sort of there's a bit more to unpack maybe with audiences before you can go to those places sometimes. But saying that, like, I've had some of the nicest. I did the last ever show of my first solo show was in the Midlands,
right?
Because I kind of wanted to like finish touring it there, and I did it in Malvern, which is quite near to where I grew up, and that was like one of the nicest shows I've ever had. And and again, it's like good kind of real people where you kind of have this sense of like being like, well, if you guys are laughing, like, I know it's actually funny. It must actually be really good. Like,
But we were talking about let's talk about that. Where did the puppetry come from?
Oh God, I think it came from like I was quite shy as a kid. I was quite kind of
Right.
didn't love having to like speak as myself, and yeah, I think even then I was quite aware that I was like a weird kid, and kind of that people probably thought I was a bit awkward, and yeah, that I definitely knew from a young age that it was like, oh, he's not like the other boys kind of vibe. So I think like I always was like, oh, I just want to hide. And then I think I loved the Muppets from when I was really little. I'd like seen, early, like I'd seen like I think a VHS of like the Muppet Show and been like, okay, that's the best thing I've ever seen in the world. And then yeah, just kind of I think basically at some point I saw ventriloquism on YouTube and was like, that's really cool because you can be on stage, which I think I wanted to do. I liked the idea of like performing. I really loved theatre. I was already kind of like, would love to be able to go on stage, but I just feel like so inhibited by myself that like that yeah, the idea of like being on stage but hiding at the same time was just great. And then I mean, I don't think I knew that was why I was so drawn to it, but that was it really. And then yeah, then I found basically I saw there was this kind of this crazy story where this toy shop opened up near me in Worcester, and there was a witch puppet in the window, and I saved up pocket money for like, I don't know, like 10 weeks or something to like be able to go and buy this witch puppet. And I bought her, and then as soon as I bought her, this shop closed. It was like it opened and closed like for this like fate meeting.
Wow.
And,
yeah.
Like, and that witch puppet is like the same witch puppet that I then have I did my first solo show with her, and she's kind of the one that I started comedy with basically. And she kind of weirdly became my like other voice, this other thing that I could just like have so much fun with. And
yeah. Is that the Christmas witch? Just when you put tinsel on her.
She can be a Christmas witch. She can be a Christmas witch. Yeah, there's good stuff out there of her. She'll do any occasion. I think we are. It's weird. I know it's so weird to talk about it as a double. I'm like, we are going to be doing this thing, but it is how my brain works. When it comes to like doing anything with her, I'm like, oh, we've got this thing coming up. But we're going to host like a Easter show next month, and it's so funny to me that I'm like, I will try and sandwich this witch into any special occasion. I will make her the like Easter witch, the Hanukkah witch, so like whatever you need her to be, we can do.
You addressed that in the clips I was watching when you can't just stick a bit of tinsel on me and call me the Christmas witch.
Yeah. There's no Christmas witch. You can't make it work.
It really made me laugh. And then now you've explained it, I'm like, of course it's gonna be it's gonna be a bit. But isn't it weird though that the shop opened and then that happened and then the shop vanished? That things like that I find
so
incredible.
Weird.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And then you'll go,
it really did feel like
yeah. Go on.
Yeah, it was totally that. It was totally like such a... I don't think I'd ever quite realised it either, because I think I'd just been like, oh, that's a shame that shop closed. I would have loved to like buy more puppets from there. And like, it's only later that I've gone, that's mad that witch has become like the thing that I've done for so long. And people have asked, about getting other puppets and doing other things. And now the new show that I'm working on, I have some new puppets in it that are slightly more characters that I've actually kind of designed and that have come from making a new thing. And it's a bit more, I guess it's a very different process. But like, even then, I still, when it comes to like comedy, the kind of comedy world and gigging a lot, for me, it just feels like she's my double act partner, and I'm kind of mostly meant to do stuff with her. And it's like, it's weird. It's weird to be like, what is this weird relationship with this like I mean, she's disgusting now as well. It's the same exact puppet. So after all this time, she's really manky. Like, it's a really horrible object.
I mean, Richard Herring he was doing a bit. He was doing some puppet stuff because he found his granddad or his great granddad's puppet in the loft.
Yeah.
I found it somewhere, and it was like 104 years old or something.
Wow. Those guys really creep me out. There are some of those. Yeah, last month I got invited to go to this like massive ventriloquist. It was like UK ventriloquist day kind of convention thing, and it was majority like men in their like 60s, 70s with creepy old puppets. Really and there was a guy selling like those. I think he'd sort of refurbished them. Like it was kind of a thing where he'd like, they were like those like 100-year-old ones, but he'd like, done them up, and but they go for like so much. But it's mad. He was like, yeah, that one will be like, that one's like $2,500. It's like, who is paying that for a like what? Like, it's
for
mad.
A haunted puppet.
Yeah.
Because that's what'll happen.
Yeah.
You'll buy it, and then one day it'll be just sat on the end of your bed talking to you.
For sure.
And I'm not. Yeah. No. I'm not scared of ghosts and things like that. But I'm scared of puppets, things like that.
Don't invite that evil in. No, it's not. You don't need it. That's like, yeah. Well, that's the thing is that she, I feel like with the witch brew, she's alive, but I know that it's me that's given her life, so it's not as creepy, maybe, because I'm sort of like, well, I've done this. It's my own fault.
Yeah.
Like, any life that she has like entirely. But it is true that it's like I've like haven't quite got to that place with the new puppets that I'm working with, because to me they are still puppets. There is definitely still more of a line with those guys where I'm a bit like, okay, a friend of mine actually made them, I designed them. They're a bit more. Yeah, it feels like to me I'm a lot more aware. It's like more like a costume or something where I'm like, yeah, I know how this, I know that I've thought this through and who this character is. But with her, there's a lot more of a. It's true that there'll be times where, like, if I'm having bad gigs, I'll put her on a shelf for a little while, and I just let her say what she needs to say. Like, I kind of just do a thing where I'll like walk into a room and she'll start saying like, I don't think you're eating well enough, and it's like she'll just tell me like what it is. She's like, I think you're not, we're not really earning enough to make this feel good, like, or whatever it is. Like, she'll just say it, and I'm like, right, okay, thanks, mate. Cool.
So you're giving yourself a talking to, but through
yeah. So
it does feel like someone, and it's someone that you look up to. Weirdly, like,
well, she's wiser than me for sure.
Yeah,
she's got more clarity than me, so it's like. Yeah, I even do have friends of mine that will call. This is really funny, and I'm not gonna like the people who it is are gonna be like, I can't believe you've said that on a podcast. But I do have friends who will like every now and then call me and say, I need some advice. Can I talk to her?
Brilliant.
And I'll just like do her voice on the phone and just like.
You have to do video call to make sure I know it's her.
Yeah. Because she's not even around. She doesn't even need to be there. She's like,
she's out.
Yeah. I'm just her understudy at this point.
Oh my god, this is such a great film in the making. This strange shop, dude. When they come to do your life story, when they do a biopic of your life story, the shop appearing and disappearing, and then this puppet arrives in your life. Because I bet you say to people, you go, "Oh yeah, I got it from this toy shop that was in the blah blah blah." That's never been a toy shop there. That was always a pub.
God. Yeah. Really freaky stuff.
It's all about a toy shop. It was a post office.
There was never a toy shop there. I don't know where that witch came from.
Oh my god, this is brilliant. We're really getting we really got in deep really quickly. So
not hard with this. Ventriloquism's so weird that there's no avoiding it. I feel like that's the thing. There's no way around it. It's so weird.
But it's like characters. It's like people that do a character, having spent time with them over the years, and you know a good character when you start talking about that. I remember sitting with Keith Carter, who used to do a character called Nige, like proper Liverpudlian scally. And it was such a great character. I remember we were writing some material, right? We were talking about material, and we went, yeah, but Nige wouldn't talk like that. Nige wouldn't say that. And so Nige had taken on a whole life of his own.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I remember talking about where Nige was going, like in like how he was progressing and what the character was becoming. It was a bit like Lee Nelson as well. Lee Nelson went from being this little chavvy kid to then being in suits, and I think it's like that with what you're doing. There's it's a good way to channel the comedy that's in you. If you don't feel like maybe if you're doing it yourself, you don't feel like that's strong enough. It's a good way to funnel it through. Yeah, it's a good lens to put it through.
Well, I'm also quite lucky because I kind of then found clown as well, and that's like its own kind of, you know, that's like got its own the stuff that comes with that is also really interesting to combine, I think, with it, because from doing clown, you know, training workshops, whatever, I kind of was like, I think my clown is shy. It's the same thing. That's this sort of inner kid thing that comes up in clown, where you're like, well, what is it that, you know, if it's about kind of what is your core idiot. The thing is that, like, often before I do a gig, I still have that thing of going like, oh, I don't want to go on stage. I feel really shy. I feel really like I just don't want to have to speak. I don't want to have to. So then to like be able to kind of replay that same dynamic and have this like character that just does all the talking for me, and for me to be able to be as small as I want, like to really be able to like settle into like being like I can actually now play and have fun with the thing of being even more small than I actually even am. Like I can now really go all the way into that and see what it's like if I barely speak, and like what tension that creates in a comedic, you know, dynamic. And I think that's become its own kind of game as well.
Like a defense sort of mechanism, like another shield to protect you. Like I know, again with the characters that people cannot bring themselves to do it as themselves. Some do. Some go on like Colin Holt is now doing it as Colin Holt, not Anna Man. But then to the like with the characters, like I said before, when we were talking about them, like they were real people. Is that the same with the puppets? They've got. You're kind of like, well, that's not really that's not what clown would do, or that's not what the witch would do. She'd say this.
Yeah, I kind of find it. I guess, it's interesting because I'm still kind of working that out, where the sort of line is in what I do between whether it's sort of character or clown, I guess, because there's sort of a difference between them, and the I guess like you say with characters, I feel like there's often a set of rules of what that character does or doesn't do, or how they feel about things, and that's quite consistent. Whereas I think when you're combining the two a little bit, there's within clown, I think there's a little bit more flexibility, maybe more so with live stuff than like if you're writing something for film or TV. But I think because you want to be able to be so responsive to what's in the room and how the audience feel about you, or what they want, or what they're laughing at, and being able to follow more the thing that they're finding funny in that specific room, you almost have to be able to slightly throw away your rules as well sometimes, and be a bit like, okay, normally this character is funny in this way, but they don't really like that. So tonight, she's a little bit more like this. We're going to go a little bit more with this thing, or like there's more of the, that's kind of, you know, sometimes she's meaner to me, for example. Like that's something that like when we've been like touring the show, that's been kind of interesting across the country to see, like there's places where they love when she's really nasty to me. So we do a lot more of that. Or it's like, the opposite. Sometimes they like, sometimes the thing that they're finding funny is the sort of the sweetness between us, and something where it's like, you can tell that they really love each other, or, you know, like, so it's kind of trying to build shows where those dynamics can have some flexibility, I guess, and slightly alter depending on the room you're in, and the characters aren't so tight that you are like, she's consistently like this, or
Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned being shy, and that's something that resonates with me because I'm shy, and it sounds weird saying it as a grown man, but
I know
it becomes such a problem. It's not such a problem as much. Comedy's really helped me, as I imagine it has with you.
Yeah.
But I still have moments. Like I met a comedy hero of mine a couple of weeks ago, and I was trying to be cool, but I was also shy. So I didn't, and I just came across as weird. Like those two, I was excited to meet him, and I didn't want to look like a dick. And then I was shy, so I was worried about looking like a dick. And then I think I might have come across as a bit kind of aloof and arrogant, maybe a bit like, yeah, whatever. I didn't mean to, because I was like, I didn't want to encroach on his time too much. But thinking back, he was quite pleased he was happy to have a chat, and I kind of fucked it. And that's happened to me so many times in my life because of being so. It's debilitating sometimes, the shyness. What was that like for you growing up? Because obviously, on the surface, you look like you're sort of quite outgoing. Like your image is quite kind of, it's different, isn't it?
Yeah, so, and I think I am now in lots of ways. I am a lot more now. As I do enjoy like social things a lot more now than I ever thought I would when I was younger. Yeah. But I do just remember sort of, and I still have it often with like sort of, I feel like I've always had that slight complex as well about like this idea that there's a cool kid group, or that there's like some kind of thing that I'm a little bit on the outside of.
Yeah.
And I think that's another weird one. But like, and similarly, like if I meet anyone who I really admire in comedy, I have the same thing where I kind of do the same thing where I'm a little bit, afterwards I kind of leave being a bit like, oh God, did it seem like I just didn't care? Exactly like you said, and does it seem like I'm a bit of a kind of an asshole or a bit like neggy or something, and because I just didn't really like engage with that properly. But it's almost like you just care too much, and then you just But I know, it's I still definitely, I find like in some social situations now, I'm quite happy to not speak so much. I guess that's like a funny thing that I'm trying to sort of maybe find and like settle into a thing where it's kind of like, actually, I'm very lucky to have a lot of friends who are big personalities, as we do in comedy, and especially like in kind of the clown world, and I kind of am a bit in like cabaret and drag and those kind of things as well, and it's kind of everyone is like just massive people with like so much to say. So I'm kind of starting to enjoy maybe being someone that can be in that space and not say so much, and just kind of be like, everyone's talking and they're happy to be heard. So I'll just
having spent a bit of time in the drag community with an ex-partner of mine, I know what you mean. Some huge characters, some huge personalities, and you do find I do more than often. I'd be sort of stood there going, just letting them do it, letting them get on with it, because it's entertaining more than anything. That was the thing.
I'm just not. I'm just not one of those people in like a dressing room or something that really wants to be heard like in that room. I think I'm just slightly different. Like I love like one-to-one chats. I think I'm a lot more kind of interested in like sitting with someone and having an actual chat. So I think it's interesting how much in those spaces I'm very happy to just sort of like, I'll often be kind of getting changed into some stupid clowny costume or something with a puppet in the corner, but just listening to like these like people with huge like personas and huge things to say, and like it's a great world to be in. So it's like you say, it's so entertaining that like there's no. I'm very happy to just be sort of an audience member in those environments.
I think that's it. I think it's important to not have. I think your ego is important to have it kept in. Like saying, it's when you see other people that just, like you say, some people just have to be the front of it all, and they have to be heard. And I'm like you, I'm quite happy to go, it's cool. You sort of, it's a weird like we are shy, but at the same time, there's a kind of like a, I don't know, like a quiet confidence, like really small confidence. You're like, well, I know I can do what I'm doing, so that's why I've been booked. So, I don't really need to. I don't feel the need to prove myself in a green room.
Yeah.
On a subconscious level.
Yeah.
But
and I mean, it would be so obnoxious of me to be. I think I'm maybe so aware that like the thing I'm doing is often so strange.
Yeah.
I'm aware it would be so obnoxious if I was like someone in the corner like talking loudly with a puppet. I don't want to be that weirdo. So I think I'm really often like, okay, I'm going to be a little bit sheepish about how weird what I'm doing is. I'll go out on stage and do it and shout, really scream with this puppet and do something quite insane, and then I'll come back off and go back to being like humble and put my toys away and like it's Yeah, it
would be funny. Like you're in the corner of the room, everyone's talking, and you're just in the corner.
Yeah. That's a really weird vibe to bring to any room.
I'd love to see it just once, and I go, oh, okay, that's happening.
Yeah. What's he like to work with? Yeah, he's quite noisy.
It takes over a green room. It's shocking. But you mentioned clowning. What did you do? Is it Gollier? Did you go to, or was it somewhere else?
I did. Yeah, I did go to Gollier.
Can I ask you something about it? You might be asking something, because all I ever hear is it's an experience. But he's quite a tricky one. He's quite a tricky personality.
Yeah. He is. I mean, I sort of think that what you're signing up for when you go, maybe, and that there's I mean, if you really dig into it and talk to people who went to the school, like, I don't even know, but like it used to be in London, I think, in the 70s, I want to say, and it was if you talk to any of those alumni, you find out that he's been a bit of a bastard for a long time. Like it's a lot of kind of I think he used to be a lot worse than the version of him that I kind of got. By the time I went to the school, I think he'd just turned like 80, and he was quite gentle, I guess. Not like, he's still, the school itself still wears you down. Like it's designed to like really, you can only be told that you're shit like every day for so long before you start really internalizing it.
That's what I wanted to ask you. It's a lot of money to be told you're shit on a daily basis. I could do that at home.
But ultimately also it's the thing that you have to remember if you do that type of training is that it's a game. And I think the thing that he's always trying to make you aware of is that it's not real, and it doesn't matter. There's actually a part of it where of course it matters, and what you put on stage in front of people is an offering, so it matters because you have to care about it being good, and you have to really want to make people love you and all of that stuff. But it's also I think he's really playing the role of a teacher. I don't think he really is that mean. I think it's a thing where he's playing this like sort of bully. He's like a dad or something. It's like everyone loves him in this way that is like, I think it's like there's this sort of quite Jungian thing about like mothers and fathers, and the kind of thing about how mothers can love you unconditionally, fathers don't love you unconditionally. You have to earn their love. And I think that school is that, like, that's what that school teaches you, is that the audience don't love you unconditionally. It's a thing of learning that when you come on stage, an audience don't just inherently love you. You've got to earn it, and you've got to like give them something. And it's a game that makes you learn that. The school, I think, is basically a process of a game that makes you internalize that, and the feeling of going like, okay, if I'm not giving you something within a certain amount of time, there's a drum that gets banged, and that means I've like fucked it. And like that's kind of it's kind of about that, I guess. But I think if you can remember that you're playing a game and that you're meant to be entering this kind of really quite stupid, childlike space of just wanting to please this old man, then like you can enjoy it, and it can be just really fun. You just have to get not too caught up on it. I just found myself very often like leaving the school, and like I would just go to Paris and do other stuff because I was just like, I can't think about this school at any times when I'm not there, because otherwise I'm going to go crazy. Like it will send you mad if you're thinking about it all the time.
Yeah, it's fine. Because it's good to know that. I think if you were to go and didn't really know anything about it, I think if I went and I didn't know anything about it, I would find it really hard. Now I've spoken to you and a few other people that have been and heard different things, then I'd be a bit more prepared. And how you've just literally just explained it, it's changed it completely for me. Changed it completely. But if I'd have just gone, and then you go, whatever, you're shit. I'm like, you're shit as well. Just
yeah.
Get to a fight with an 80-year-old man.
But it's also fun. I mean, even that is fun. It's very funny when he calls people shit. He's very funny when he does it. It's a very funny thing to watch. And he's very creative with his insults. Like it's like I think like there was a friend of mine who he would consistently tell her that her voice sounded like oh my god, what was it? It was like a I think it was like a homosexual hairdresser's chihuahua's shit that was like the whole like thing. And he would tell her that over and over. Like, your voice sounds like a homosexual's hairdresser's dog's shit. And it was just like, it's like, how can you? And then he would ask everyone in the room, like, don't you agree? Like, he would turn to one of her friends, and, like, don't you think that she sounds like that? And you have to say yes. You have to just go, yes, Philippe, she sounds like a homosexual dog's. Like, it's just like the most ridiculous. Like, yeah.
It's that I would. I don't know if I could handle it. Oh god! But it's obviously. Did it help you? Did it help you with your confidence and help you with stagecraft?
I think it did, yeah. And I think so. And because it is this whole kind of way of working and building something which comes from just play and it's a lot less in the head, I guess, than other ways of writing. And I still love writing from ideas and writing from a place of I love narrative. I still love trying to make a show from that place. But I think in terms of what you're actually doing on stage with your body, it gave me this whole other way of accessing what was funny, really, because you're just having to be so much more honest about what is funny about you, what is funny in an actual room. And it did really help me. And I think, like I say, it kind of really, for a while, I didn't really know how I was going to put the two things together as well. Like, I really took away ventriloquism from myself while I was there and tried to just, because nothing scared me more than the idea of coming out on stage as a clown without anything and just being like, I'm going to try and be funny, because I always have felt, and I still sort of do to some extent, that I'm not funny, that there's not something about me that is funny. So it is like this very funny process of like, when you're stood there and it's like, okay, make us laugh with no jokes, no props, even just nothing, just like, you have to try and be funny.
Right.
That was just that it felt like terror. And that's kind of why I was like, I think I have to do that. I think I need to try that, because I think that's going to then mean that because I think maybe as I got into like my late teens, I think I've been doing ventriloquism for a little while, and I was aware of the naffness of it. I think I was already a bit like, oh, I don't really want to be, and I say this with all love and respect to the people who do this, but I was a bit like, I don't really want to be like a panto
Yeah,
performer or a like Butlins, like, you know, like that's a very different thing than what I'm excited by, and I really would like to do comedy. So I think there was this thing where I was like, oh, I think I need to find another way into ventriloquism then that's not just me doing kind of quite traditional jokes or something that is very formulaic in terms of like a traditional variety act. And yeah, I think that clown just really, like towards the end of being there, it made a lot more sense to me then that it was like, oh, okay, I don't even have to do jokes. If I can really play with this dynamic and with characters in this way, and the worlds that I'm making it within the work in this way, then like it can be way more expansive and weird and like funny from a more visceral place than me telling a joke. You know, yeah, it's there's a lot of those kind of end of pier jokes about like, oh, which one of us is the puppet, and just kind of doing the tricks, and like that's and the people who do that well are phenomenal, but it's just not like the thing that I was excited about in continuing it, really.
I'm glad. It's funny when I was, like I say, was first made aware of you, and then there was, oh yeah, he's they didn't say ventriloquist, they just said, oh, he does puppets, does puppetry, and I went, oh, okay, and it was that, that again, like you've actually nailed it. When I was growing up, the puppets that we knew about was just so end of the pier, you know, not really my cup of tea. But then when I saw your stuff, and I'm like, oh no, this is different. This is there's an edge to it which I liked.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I it's interesting because I do have to. Yeah, I sort of it's a tricky one sometimes with finding the ways to convince people of that a little bit. Sometimes of wanting to sort of be like, oh, please, like, come and see it, or like, watch it or something, because I think you'll find it's not the thing that you're thinking it is, and it's like it is and I totally get where that assumption is coming from. Like I say, there is a real naffness to it, and I don't know if I would pay to go and watch a ventriloquist. So it's like I get that it's a hard sell sometimes.
Well, it's funny. I did a few years ago now when Basil Brush was in Edinburgh, and we were all sort of guesting on the show. I've probably said this on here before, but I sat down in the chair, and that's the first time I've seen the guy underneath the desk. Sorry to spoil it. No, spoiler alert. So the first time I'd seen the guy under the desk, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's a puppet. I grew up with Basil Brush. And then as I sat down, he got Basil. He went, oh, hello. And he went to like Basil went for my crutch. He'd like to go, oh, hello. And I went, oh, I can't be me too by Basil Brush. This would be
no. No.
Just at the moment.
Terrible.
It made me laugh, but at the same time, I'm like, this has destroyed my childhood.
Yeah. Was Basil Brush on the BBC? I mean, you know, I
think so.
Checks out then, I suppose.
Yeah. They love a nonce. Yeah, they love a sex offender, the old beeb.
Not Basil as well.
Yeah, Basil, they're all at it, mate. Roland Rat, all of them. He had condoms for years. They're all at it, mate. Well, maybe that was it. Maybe they were sex offenders. They had to use another medium because they weren't confident enough to just do it on their own and needed a puppet.
Oh my God, no. I
don't know how slanderous this is.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know if any of this is okay. We can't make any allegations against Basil Brush. Surely,
I imagine that would make the news, wouldn't it? Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Let's change the subject, Lachlan.
Yeah, shall we?
I feel you're getting uncomfortable as well. It's like, I'm just getting started, and Rich Wilson fucked my career. Like calling the Beeb a load of nonsense. Oh dear! But they keep proving us. They keep proving us right. Anyway.
Yeah, it's not us doing it, is it?
No, exactly. You know. So anyway, let's change that. It must have been. Was it like growing up in Worcester with, like, you know, when you're discovering your you know who you are, your sexuality and things like that. And as you said earlier, you felt different. What was that like? What was it like? Because like again, you know, I know from experience from the 70s and the 80s, which I know was a very difficult time. What was it like for you? Sort of, would that be? It would be 90s. That would be further on in the early
2000s.
Early 2000s, yeah. What was it like?
It was interesting because it was still. We definitely still. I think it's interesting earlier that you said that like sort of things have changed since you were growing up. I think again, like I really noticed like. You know, I've got like younger cousins. My brother's like 15, and I really see the difference between their generation and how it was when I was in school. It's already like such a different attitude towards like I think, and I would probably because of the internet, really largely actually. Like, I think we was just sort of just on that cusp where we didn't yet have so much like visibility in that way. So it was still very much like there was still a lot of like. I think I didn't come out until I was like 17. I mean, everyone knew. Like, it wasn't a shock to anybody. There was no like, yeah. Nobody was surprised. But like, I think it was like it was a weird one where it was just very. It was different. It was like. I don't. It's a weird one because I don't think I was. Bullied really. It wasn't. I never had a really hard time in school in that way. There was other ways that for sure I didn't. I did really hate school, but I think I hated it more because of like being a bit neurodiverse and having different like learning difficulties and ways of, you know, I just found that really like crap that was the system and that was how intelligence was measured, I guess. But that unfortunately hasn't. I don't think changed at all still. But I think, it was interesting because I think it was a wider thing of everyone knowing that it wasn't, that you like didn't want to be gay. But I don't think it was, I think on like a personal level, I don't know. I remember like maybe a couple of boys like coming out in my year towards the end of school and kind of everyone just being like, oh, okay. And there was a sort of weird respect for someone actually coming out and that being like a thing that someone had done. I think everyone was sort of like, well, if you're saying it about yourself, then actually like fair enough. Like it was kind of this weird like, I don't know. I think it was more like it was ammo for someone who didn't want to admit that they were, or like it was but I don't know. It was weird to sort of, I guess, to kind of know that about myself, but to be like, oh, it's not really something that I don't know how this is gonna play out in my life and when I'll talk about this or when
you didn't feel
definitely like still was.
Yeah, you didn't feel like you had to sort of cover it up, or you could still be quite open as you were growing up.
Yeah,
well, you
I suppose
you didn't know.
I didn't really know. I think I didn't know that that's what it was, and it was weird because I think performing and wanting to do ventriloquism and wanting to do all of these things, that for me was what it was more. That was the like expression of who I was, and it obviously wasn't. You know, at that point, I didn't fancy boys when I was young. I remember really being like, oh, I just hated other boys. If anything, I was just like, all of my friends are girls. I don't really vibe with boys. Like,
yeah.
So I think it was a very different, like, that was the sort of experience of queerness in a weird way, was just being someone who, mostly gelled with girls and loved to do like very camp theatrical things and was like, this is, I guess I just didn't know that that's what it was at that time. But it was kind of like, and again, it was weird. I think people had a sort of weird respect for it, actually. Like I said, I don't think, like, unless there's like something I've majorly blocked out from like a traumatic experience or something. But like, I really weirdly feel like there was a thing where in school I just was quite consistently like, I'm going to be a ventriloquist when I'm older. Like that's going to be my job. And people were like, that's very weird. But I think it was sort of, or people were a bit like, that's not a job. You're not going to make money from that. And I think it was more just that I was like, yeah, I am. But if at any time that I kind of had a show or something, like locally, people were a bit like, oh, good for you. Like that's, you know, it's good that you're good at something. Like that's kind of, it was sort of just this weird like thing where it was that.
Yeah, it sounds like they were just more concerned for your well-being, like money-wise, rather than any kind of.
And they still are. That's really fair.
Oh, that never goes away. That never goes away. My mum still asks me if I'm getting paid. I'm like I say, 20 years in. And she goes, "We're getting paid." I'm like, yeah. She goes, "Well, you've never got any money." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. That's what I do." It's not. It's not. And she gets it. She sort of gets it, but I think it's funny with I think that's it. I think, you know, as you say, you've been able to be sort of quite open the whole way along. So then when you do finally go, by, you know, oh, I'm gay, and everyone went, yep. And, which is a nice place to be. Which is a nice place.
Yeah, it really was actually. Like my parents were very calm about it, and it was just kind of like, okay. And then I think, and it was more like, I think for me, the thing that was just harder was honestly then trying to navigate. Like I say, I think, and this is maybe still an ongoing thing, but even like then, it's like trying to navigate romantic relationships with men is a harder thing then, because like I say, I didn't have a lot of like great male friends like a lot or that kind of relationship, and I'm a kind of vaguely sort of complicated relationship with my dad and stuff. So I think it's more all of that that's like the thing about that for me has been the hardest part of queerness, I guess, is more than like trying to understand men. And understand what a relationship with them really looks like in any, not just in, not just in romantic things, but, friendships as well, but just like in all kinds of ways. That's kind of a more, that's been more of an interesting journey.
I think that is really interesting, because if you haven't got like a strong, for want of a better phrase, like a strong sort of role model, or you've not spent a lot of time around men, like you've just said. So I was very lucky. I was surrounded by women from a very young age, and so I love women. In fact, a lot of the time I was growing up, I preferred the company of women than to men. I didn't feel. When I'm with women, I don't feel the need to try and be something I'm not. I could just be. Whereas men always seemed a little bit aggressive and a little bit, you got to be this, you got to be that. And I imagine you had more trouble coming out as a ventriloquist. Not under my roof.
Totally. Yeah. Definitely. I think telling them that I wanted to go to clown school was like the worst. What? That was like the thing that
Absolutely
was like,
not.
what the hell? It's
A clown, a dancer.
Clown, not a clown in the family, no way.
A fucking clown. Your uncle was a clown, and look what happened to him. Banged up, mate.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'll tell you what, this has been lovely, Lachlan. We really enjoyed speaking to you. So you're going to Edinburgh. That's happening.
Yeah. With a very new show that is, pretty different from anything I've done before. It's a way more kind of big theatrical narrative show that's a bit sci-fi, and that it's set in circus, so it's lots of like it's very physical comedy show, as well as with the puppets and ventriloquism. It's a lot more there's a lot more of me doing stupid stuff with my body as well. So it's going to be a bit of a mad month, I think, in Edinburgh. We're still making the show, so I don't really fully know yet just how intense of a month it's going to be, but I'm predicting quite a
you're going to have
wild one.
You're going to have to pace yourself, mate. You've got it sounds with a show of that nature. Even when I've done shows up there, and I have kicked the arse out of myself, and that's just me doing me. For someone like that, if you're doing a show of that level, you're going to have to be really, really, really strong with yourself about, socializing and things like that, and don't talk to too many people before the show, and really look after
all
yourself.
Of that. It's all of that.
It's going to be hard, man.
Yeah,
You're going to smash it. It's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth
it. Yeah.
And where can we find you on the socials?
I'm at Lachlan Werner on pretty much everything. I think that's the easiest way to find me. I mostly post on Instagram. I'm not very good at maintaining all the other ones, but that's
it's such a ball ache, isn't it? The whole thing. But this is what we do now. I reckon you're going to have a great time in August. I think you're going to do really well. And I look forward to seeing all the reviews and everything, all the nice things that get said about you. So
thanks, Rich.
Have a nice time. It's been lovely. Thank you for joining us. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me. It's been lovely.
It's been great.
You too.
So this has been Insane in the Membrane. This has been Lachlan Werner. And we'll see you next time.